Signorile Show on Sirius XM LQ 108.
Welcome back. I'm Michelangelo Signorile on Sirius XM LQ 108. Pastor Ken Hutcherson is the senior pastor of the Antioch Bible Church in Redmond, Washington. He is a former Seattle Seahawks linebacker, and he is a man who has been a voice against marriage for gays and lesbians in Washington State and nationally. And he joins me now to talk about the developments on Election Day when, of course, Washington State voters passed a law allowing gays and lesbians to marry. Pastor Hutcherson, welcome back to the program.
Michael, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm wondering how you're feeling, though, and what you thought on Election Day. Was it a shock to you, or did you expect that the marriage law would be passed by the voters?
Well, all indication was that you guys had about a 4% in your favor, and that we was hoping that the church would turn out to eliminate that advantage, and the church did not. There was some very frustrating circumstances and situations that had happened over the course of the campaign that allowed us to come on the short end of that stick, Michael.
What do you think happened? You said the church didn't do it, and there were things that happened in the campaign. What were some of the problems?
Well, I just think there was some wrongs that was committed by some of the national organizations. You know, I hear it in the state of Washington. We have been pretty organized over the years on many of the things that we stand on biblical principles, and that we have basically been a unified body inside the state. Well, of course, when this issue hit, we had some of the national organizations come in here and wanted to do it their way, wanted to choose their leadership. And because of that, we had a very big division of unity in the state brought on by the national organizations, and we never recovered from that.
Now, what was it that they did that you felt didn't work and you felt should work? I read where you said that they had become sissified, and you called some churches evangelifish, meaning obviously they went soft. Was that the problem? What were specifically the problems?
Did I use the word sissified?
That's what I read. That's
Really?
what I think you said on a radio program.
I think they went weak, extremely, bro. I think they went to the point where the national organizations wanted to be a little bit more loving, to look like they were more to the point of putting, no bad taste in anyone's mouth about what was said. But we're on different sides. I mean, it's like the Democrats and Republicans. If Republicans are going to act like Democrats and Democrats are going to act like Republicans, why choose to vote for one that is acting like the other? And I think that what happened out here was that we had a lot of good leadership that was cross-cultural, that we had leadership of lay people and of pastors. And when the National Organization of Marriage and Focus on the Family and the Family Policy Institute came out, they said that we was too controversial and that they thought that other leadership should be involved. So, yeah, I think they went weak like the Republican Party has gone. I mean, stand on your principles. If you got principles, stand on them.
Well, I want to come back to the issue you just raised about them feeling you were too controversial and get into that in a minute. But I first want to address your saying that they were weak and that they were too nice in a sense. The National Organization for Marriage used Frank Schubert, the same guy they used in the Proposition 8 battle. They used him in all 4 states here. They used him in Maine in 2009.
North Carolina.
When they won in North Carolina. He put the same kind of ads on television, that were making the case as the National Organization for Marriage has made it. So what did you feel was wrong? Were those ads, was that approach, it should have been harsher? It was still too nice?
No, I think the approach should have been what the issues were. And they tried to make Washington State fit other states, which Washington State is not like any other states. And they tried to make it to the point where, it's about the children. It's about schools. It's about all these. Most of those things already happen in the state of Washington, Michael. So the issue really needed to boil down to the biblical issue. The biblical issue is what is right and wrong. And that's where I stand. I always have stood on right and wrong. You know me long enough, and we've talked enough times.
Yes.
The issue is right and wrong with me when it comes to the Bible. And what everyone is doing, the value voters, look at the whole program that's been going on lately with conservatives, is that they're moving away from the fact of what we stand on, what is the biblical principle, what is the value voters. And value voters didn't show up here in this state. Value voters didn't show up throughout the U.S. We have almost 50% of, they say, evangelical and value voters did not vote in the last 2 elections. And it's because value voters are not going to compromise, and that's what happened in North Carolina. They wanted to do the same thing in North Carolina, and the church says, look, no, we're going to stand on what the issue, and the issue is a biblical principle that is wrong, and that's where we stand.
So you think,
even though your side outraised them 10-1 like they did out here in the state of Washington, they still won because the church, the value voter, came out and showed up and voted. And we lost the value voter when we started all this controversy over about who is controversial, who is not, who's the leader, who is not going to be the leader, and that we're going to choose who the leaders are if we come in and help you.
So you feel the ads should have been more focused on the Bible, more focused on morality?
Less focused on morality.
Less focused on morality.
Yeah.
And more focused on the Bible. You're saying it should have been a religious message to get religious voters out there.
It should have been, when I said it was more, it was less morality, they tried to make it, they tried to win the moderate, Michael. And if you're going to win the moderate, you got to stay away from what they call hardline biblical principles. So they tried to come with this psychological and the sociological argument. That doesn't win. What wins is the fact that we need to stand on what the Bible says and stand on the moral issues to get the value voter out.
Right.
And when they came in here and basically going to dictate who was going to be or not, and I said right out the bat, well, you think it's controversial, or you think I'm controversial because I don't look white, I don't talk white, I don't act white, and I am not that milquetoast-looking kind of guy that's going to be calm about everything. I got a passion on what's right. You know me. I got a passion, and I will stand on what I think the biblical principles are. That if that's controversial, then we got a problem in the United States. We'll never win another election on anything.
Well, you just said that you weren't seen as somebody because you were not white. You were seen as somebody who may be controversial. You didn't look like them. You've said this in a couple of other interviews as well, that they left you as the odd man out. They're all the same color, Tony Perkins, Brian Brown, Maggie Gallagher, all the leaders of those groups. So do you feel that there was some sort of racial bias here?
Well, let me ask you. Tony Perkins and I are very great friends. Tony's never had a problem with me or my color, but I haven't worked with these other organizations before. Now, let me ask you a question, Michael. You know as well as I do. You guys have dealt with some of these issues with these major organizations. What is the leadership makeup of all these organizations?
Well, they're all white.
What is the makeup of the approach that most of all these organizations take? Is it a cross-cultural approach, or is it a Caucasian, middle, upper white class approach?
Well, the National Organization for Marriage has basically been known for this approach they put forth, where they said they have to drive a wedge through the gay and black community. So we
Is that correct? Would that be right to do?
No, but we know they
if
were
it's not
targeting
right
they
to
were
do-
targeting black leaders and the black community.
Right. If that is not right to do and it's the wrong thing to do, guess who's going to stand against it, Michael?
So you were against that approach.
I was totally against that approach because it's wrong.
So
That's not what we do to win.
But they were trying
to show
to
our prejudice.
They were saying they were trying to reach minority communities. How did you respond to that?
Well, I think what you do when you reach any type of community is you reach like-minded people, regardless of their color, Michael. And like-minded people are value voters. And that's why I think many people have such a hard time with the Tea Party. They try to make the Tea Party a white organization. Look at the people that's part of the Tea Party. It's like-minded people regardless of their color. And I believe that the way to win is, how many of you that in the homosexual community, Michael, only want white homosexuals working with you?
None.
None.
We all work together.
You all are unified. Unity makes success, bro. And until we find that out in the evangelical community, we're going to continue to lose.
So you feel that because you were African American, they excluded you?
Well, you want a percentage between 1 and 100?
Yeah, sure.
About 90. I just don't fit the mold, bro. But the mold has worked for years out here for us. And all of a sudden, when everyone started wanting to reach the moderates and want to water down the message and want to stay away from the biblical principles and add all these sociological issues, that don't win, man. That don't win the moderate. If the moderate, you're trying to reach the moderate, why would a moderate vote for a conservative acting moderate? They're going to go vote for the moderate. Are they going to vote for the liberal? And so I think that until we wake up, Michael, we're going to have a real serious problem of getting our views over, and we got to get unified, and that's where I'm starting. That we got to get unified. We got to get the value voters back out, but we got to give the value voters something to go out and vote for. See, Michael, when people talk about Christians and when people talk about value voters, first thing they want to do is say, vote your conviction. Am I right?
Yeah.
You've heard that before.
Right.
Vote your conviction, vote your conviction, vote your conviction. So they give us these mealy-mouthed, milquetoast, I'm for everybody type of candidates. And then they get mad when the value voters and Christians don't show up and vote.
Well, let me propose this to you, right?
Sure.
You certainly have a lot of evangelical Christians who feel very strongly about this issue. You've also got a lot of people on, the other side, on the left in the Democratic Party, who are in favor of marriage equality. And then you've had these people, in the middle who are being swayed by both sides. Now, all of the national polling shows there's really been a shift, and that those people are more so favoring marriage equality. So, I mean, there's an argument to be made here that there might just not be enough value voters, as you call them, evangelical Christians. You need still that middle, and you've lost that middle. And maybe Nam and these other groups
Michael,
are targeting the middle.
That's a great lie, man. It's not true. You know how many Christians they said stayed home on the last two elections, 2008?
Well, wait, I saw numbers. I saw numbers that showed that Mitt Romney wound up getting as many voters out as George Bush did in the midterm elections 2004 among evangelicals, and he got a larger percentage of them than John McCain.
This year?
Yes.
Not true.
He got 78% of evangelical Christians.
Yeah. Well, you know why they say that, Michael? Because of the amount of people that we consider liberal Christians are classifying themselves as evangelicals. But if you can put me in a room with about 10 of those evangelicals that call themselves evangelicals, before we get through in 30 minutes, I will prove how much they believe and don't believe in the Bible.
Well, let me ask you this.
Grab 10 or 15 of them. Let's have a show.
Why did they stay home, though? I mean, do they really have to have a case made to them by a national group about why gay marriage is bad? Why would they stay home when they see gay marriage is on the ballot? I don't understand why they would stay home because they weren't drawn out.
Well, I think it's because they feel. I think you know how some of the evangelicals feel, Michael. How much have you felt left out over the last 15 years?
Not enough to stay home during an election.
Yeah, but you're a leader, bro. Am I right? The average person you're talking to on this
I get your point.
Show is followers, Michael.
I get your point.
Leaders that makes a difference.
I get your point, but you have people who've been engaged on this issue for many years. They've seen it in Washington every time. Why would they stay home?
For the simple reason they feel that they are tired of not being heard. And if you're not going to hear us, you're going to hear from us another way.
Now, how do you feel it goes from now on? Where does it go from here? You have marriage in Washington State. You have it, gay marriage. You have it in Maryland. You have it in Maine. There are a whole bunch of other states. The Supreme Court may allow California to start marrying people in the next couple of weeks. Where do you go from here? Are you going to try to turn things around in Washington? Are you going to move on to other states?
Oh, we're going to have to. Well, I got to start in the state I live in first, bro. I think that's the most important thing.
So you're going to bring it back to a ballot?
Well, I don't know what we're going to do right now, because, it's kind of, it's a fool farmer that invites the fox into the hen house, right?
Yeah. And
until I find out what our strategy is going to be, I'm not going to tell you what it is.
But I mean, that's really the only recourse at this point. You've got to get...
The biggest recourse we got to do, Michael, is change the legislature out here. That's the biggest recourse.
Right.
I mean, that's how you get laws changed.
Right.
You got to change the legislature.
But you now have a gay man leading the legislature.
You got to get unity to vote guys out that's not listening to us.
But you now have a gay man in the leadership in the legislature. We've
had gay people in the leadership from day one out here, bro. Tell me when we haven't had a homosexual leader out here. That's why when Norm and those guys walked in here, they hadn't run into a state like the state of Washington, and they're going to try to use national ways of doing things instead of doing things the Washington way, that people have lived here, people that have understood this fight. And like I said, bro.
Now, wait, when you had...
I want to thank them for giving us...
But you had the domestic partnership bill. That was also narrowly voted in.
Guess what, man?
They weren't involved then, were they?
Lack of unity. You know what happened out here in Referendum 71. That's the one that gave domestic partnership.
Yeah. Were they involved in that, too?
We had the same issue with 71 that we had with 74, Michael, and that was guys coming here and they wanted to put guys in leadership that no one listened to, and then all of a sudden they start backstabbing leadership out here that was running 71, and that fraction started. And then they came out here and wanted to put the same people who started the fraction in Referendum 71, the leaders of 74. Now, guess what happened? Fraction, disunity.
You saw lost. Brian Brown of NAM said your comments are, quote, absurd and reckless and not true.
Have they called me?
Pastor Hutcherson wanted to work on an initiative and not a referendum, which we thought was the best method.
I told them I'm not going to work with the people they wanted to put in leadership. We was all talking about doing one thing together. What was it going to be? We know we had to do the referendum because it was voted in by the legislature. The only way to stop that was referendum. Then we said, do we need a backup to have an initiative? And that's what the big discussion was in leadership. And then when Brian Brown and those guys came in here and was going to decide what was going to take place, who was going to be the leaders, the initiative needed to be dropped. It shouldn't even be discussed anymore. I go, if you're going to put these guys in leadership, then I'm not going to be a part of it because they fractured the leadership before. And then I said, I am willing, Michael, I am willing to completely move myself out of any aspect of leadership for the sake of unity, if these guys, and especially this one guy said, will you move yourself out of leadership for the sake of unity? And he said no, because the National Organization of Marriage won't let me. And I said, that proves right there that we have some problems in this state right now.
Now, I just have a minute, but I want to ask you, you won't admit that President Obama had any effect on this coming out for marriage, changed a lot of minds there in Washington?
Nope.
All right.
Do you think the $10 million had any influence on changing any evangelical's mind?
It obviously
no, it did not.
Was
they
successful,
didn't show up.
Right? The campaign.
Do you think $10 million more than what they raised in North Carolina changed anybody's mind in North Carolina? Since they was unified, they won. So you can't buy another person's morality, bro.
But some people would say North Carolina is very different from Washington State. You have a much
bigger...
That
is, and that's why we needed to have the leaders come out of Washington, not some national organization somewhere back in Maine.
All right. Your point well taken. Always very interesting and a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for coming on the show again.
Get out here to see me, Michael.
I will. We're going to drop by and have a sit down there. Pastor Hutcherson, Ken Hutcherson of the Antioch Bible Church in Redmond, Washington, the leading force against the marriage equality law. And he's saying they lost because the National Organization for Marriage excluded him.
This is the Michelangelo Signorile Show on Sirius XM LQ 1.